Hello and welcome back to another Warlords of Draenor boss preview. This time it's going to be Oregorger on LFR difficulty. Now don't worry, don't dismiss this because it's LFR. I've done this fight on Heroic and it's basically the same. And it's actually a really cool fight. So it's a two-phase fight, and the phase switches when his energy bar reaches 0. It takes place in this pretty cool room that's a bit of a grid, and that poses some interesting questions in terms of how you position yourself, and, making sure that you're in line of sight of healers and all that stuff, which is definitely pretty cool. But anyway, let's talk about phase 1. So he starts off with 100 energy, the phase ends when he has 0. And I think the main ability that he does that most players will have to worry about is Blackrock Barrage. This just launches a whole bunch of crap at players. It does damage to everyone, but it can be interrupted, so if you're ranged, or, well, melee, if you're anyone, interrupt that, and you'll be doing good. The next thing that he does, which you can see me being near, is Wretched Blackrock. It's just a void zone on the floor, nothing particularly special. Then he also does Explosive Shard. This will put like a little shard on the ground, which will explode, do some damage after 3 seconds, and then knock people back. And I think that mainly targets the melee players, though, so it's not something I really had to deal with as ranged. Now, perhaps the most interesting thing that he does is Acid Torrent. Now, what Acid Torrent is it's the tank swap mechanic. So, he targets a ranged player, fires a blob at them. Now, if the main tank uses active mitigation when that blob sort of goes to the ranged player, then the tank will take damage anyway, but if they mitigate some of that damage, it will mean that the blob does less damage to the ranged player that it eventually hits. So if you want that in simple terms, he throws a blob at a player, the tank soaks a bit of the damage, and then the player who's got the blob thrown at them takes less damage. It's a decently interesting tank swap mechanic. And then finally, he also just puts a dot on the tank, which isn't very nice. Conveniently, now that I've finished explaining phase 1, he just moved into phase 2. So, the whole lore of Oregorger is that he's a hungry little bastard, and he's got a bizarre taste in that he loves Blackrock ore. Now, conveniently enough, when he switches into this phase, loads of crates of ore just drop from the sky. So what do you want to do? Well, you want to destroy the crates so that when he rolls over them, he'll eat some of the ore, and that will give him his energy back. And then when he gets to 100 energy, it switches back into phase 1. Now then, what he does is he basically rolls around the place. So, similar to like an old style like arcade game or something, you just want to make sure that you destroy the things and don't get rolled over by him. Now, as he rolls over, he does get a stacking buff, which will increase the amount of damage that he does. You see, when he's finished rolling and he actually hits the side of the wall, he does raid-wide damage, and that amount of raid-wide damage will increase over time, so you need to destroy the boxes of ore as quickly as possible so that Oregorger will get back into phase 1. Phase 2 is initially very easy to survive through, but as time goes on, the survivability is, it's just more problematic because he starts doing more and more damage. And there you go. That's the mechanics of the fight. We're back in phase 1. Rinse and repeat. So overall, what do I think of this fight? Well, is it massively complicated? No, it's not. It's very easy to understand. Honestly, I think this video can nearly even serve as a guide. It's not a particularly hard fight mechanically. At least it's very easy to conceptually understand what's going on. But I think it's a very fun fight, It involves players looking at the boss and saying, right, is he going to cast this Blackrock ore? There's a thing that you have to really pay attention to. You also have to pay attention to, the floor. And on normal mode, of course, well, at least when we were testing this on the equivalent of Pandaria normal mode / Warlords Heroic, spacing and maneuvering was actually a big issue. It was something you had to deal with. Not so much in LFR, though. So there's some interesting questions posed then. Now, the second phase it's an interesting sort of DPS race. I still have to work out whether the RNG of where he decides to roll around the place affects his Blackrock ore pickups. Perhaps he will roll towards wherever Blackrock ore has been, destroyed, or at least freed from its boxy confine. So, yeah, not 100% sure, but what I do like about the second phase is that it promotes a bit of movement from players. It's a break in pace from the first phase, and yeah, all of that stuff. Now, after phase 2, after he stops rolling about even, and he gets to his 100 energy, he just stops there, so the tank will probably have to reposition the boss. Ideally, you want him in just a place where you have got a lot of space for your other players to be, because that Wretched Blackrock can actually really just fill up the space that you have to play with, and because of the shape of this combat arena, space really is at a premium, especially in, say, normal difficulty. Again, it's LFR, things are a wee bit easier, and we just didn't find that to be much of a problem. So, I think really that's about it. The explosive shard thing, from what I heard from the melee players back when I did this in normal, was kind of hard to see. So there's that. Though, when we were doing the normal raid testing, we actually found that despite all the various server problems and things that we had, it only took maybe an hour for us to work out how to defeat this boss. And that, it turned out we had worked out the correct strategy, and that was all well and good. So it's not a particularly hard fight, and it's a fun fight. So hopefully what's going to happen is that on normal, this will be easy enough for an organized group, and heroic will be a little bit harder, and then on mythic, it will be extra hard. Because I do know that on mythic, there is an extra mechanic, so hopefully that'll play in. Still though, it's very cool. Now, as for the group that I was in, the guy who's at the very top DPS, as it turned out, this is a very clever little trick that he's done. So, I just thought I'd throw this in at the end of the video. Your set bonuses from Siege of Orgrimmar are still a thing, they're still good, and all your gear is automatically scaled up. So he just went in with a full set of Siege of Orgrimmar raid gear, and boom, highest DPS because of that, so clever chap. But anyway, that's it for this video. We've killed Oregorger. You know what? It's a damn cool fight. So, thank you very much for watching, let me know what you think of the encounter, and I'll see you next time.